I think we will be live and ready to go. So, welcome to the NZ Amateur Photography Awards, the first year that we are running this, and a huge thank you to Photo Warehouse who are sponsoring NZAPA Awards. Without them, this would not be here. So, we are very grateful for them, and if you do get the opportunity to go and support them, they have 7 stores nationwide and they are also online. Okay, so we have the portrait category. I am going to read out the category description. The portrait category is for photographers, for photographs of single subjects or groups, including studio photography, lifestyle imagery, self-portraits, boudoir, beauty and fashion, social, family, cultural and environmental portraits. Ooh. Portraits of pets and animals are eligible for entry in this category. Photographs of animals in their natural habitat may be more suited to the animals and nature categories. Entries may be traditional and or interpretive portraits. My name is Olivia Wakefield and we have 3 feedback judges here. We've got Stacey Cavalier, Johan Van Kaan and Kirsten Huff. There we go. I'm so sorry. I should have practiced that before we started, shouldn't I? Okie dokie. So what we're going to do is I am going to start with the the images from that scored 25th, ranked 25th in the category, down to 11th. I'm going to read out the score and where it placed, and then the feedback judges are going to offer some feedback. So I will get started. So this image here placed 25th in the category with a score of 78, which is a highly commended award. Take it away.
This photograph, the shapes that are created by the angles of the arms are just really, really beautiful. The light that captures this little girl's face is really lovely. So well done to the photographer for paying such attention to those things. Just to elevate it a little, it can be a little distracting when the eyes are so far off to the side. It's quite nice to see a little bit more of the pupil rather than the whites of the eye. And just the hand sort of around the waist is kind of tucked back in a slightly awkward angle, but it's a really, really beautiful capture, so well done.
There's a really good use of triangles with the elbow, the left arm elbow forming a triangle to the hand, and the hand is delicately touching the face. Maybe a vignette or something, or a darkening around the edges would have contained us within this photograph better as well. But still, congratulations on the positioning.
Thank you. We'll move on to the next image. This image placed 24th in the category with a score of 78, which is a highly commended.
There's a beautiful ethereal quality about this image. The downward eyes gives a sense of sadness, perhaps, and the use of muted tones allows us to feel the same feeling. Maybe attention to how the hair falls. There's one particular hair that falls off her right shoulder that leads us out of the photograph almost, which is a little bit unfortunate, but I do like the way the red out of focus foreground frames the face.
I wanted to add to this photo that the sort of the double exposure technique is a really fun thing to play with, and appreciate how that redness is falling on the lady's face and sort of giving her a little bit of blush on that face. So good positioning there. I quite enjoy as well the way that our eyes are drawn down the image as we follow her gaze down through the hairline, but then taken back up as we come through the scoop of that neck, and I think that's really lovely. But just some hot spots on the face would have elevated it a little bit more.
Thank you, and we'll move on to the next image, which scored 23rd in the category, a score of 78, which is a highly commended award.
So I really love the connection that you've got with the cat here, with the cat looking directly into the camera. I think that's been captured really well. I like the framing of it as well. Possibly a couple of little pieces to elevate it to the next level. Remove the bell, it's just a little bit distracting and draws your eyes away from the cat. And the other thing would be, although you've got that great connection, you are slightly looking down on the cat. I would just get yourself a little bit down lower on the ground, either crouching or laying on your stomach, and then you'd really get a great front-on connection with those beautiful eyes. Well done.
There's a good use of the background with almost a similar texture to this type of cat, which reflects, I guess, the presence of the cat in the image. But I absolutely agree about that bell. If we could get rid of that, that'd make it much stronger.
Thank you. We will move on to the next image, which scored 22nd in the category, a score of 78, which is a highly commended.
This image is really, really striking to me. It's obviously got that really strong graphical nature with the gravestones in the background. The way they go up the hill gives it some really interesting lines and shapes. It's obviously quite eerie with that scary face coming through as well, again with another double exposure technique. It gives you that kind of chills. It looks like, to me, it feels like something that you might find in a graphic novel or a scary storybook or something like that. The part that I also found particularly interesting were the little figures at the top, just to give us an extra dimension then to the extra humanness that's going on. I'm not quite sure where the story is, whether it's this is the person having dreams about death or nightmares, or if it's meant to be somebody that's in that graveyard. I don't know. But again, it could have been elevated if the image of the face hadn't been quite so bright, particularly around the chin and under the nose and on the forehead. And I think that would have given us a little bit more mystery for it.
There's almost a crunchiness to the treatment that has been applied to the background, the gravestones and things like that, and it takes away from the possibility of this having a sort of more engaging effect, because it's almost too graphic, but at the same time those eyes are incredibly strong, and there's a wonderful feeling that comes out of them. But I agree with the fellow judge about the hot spots. They end up being a little bit distracting.
Okay, thank you. And we'll move on to our next image, which scored 21st in the category with a score of 79, which is a highly commended.
So this is a really beautiful head tilt from this gorgeous looking Springer. I love the gaze upwards. So a couple of areas for improvement. There's quite a heavy shadow from being cast on the dog's body from the ear. So either softening that in post or using a reflector just to get rid of that. And the vignetting on it is quite heavy as well. So I'd probably just soften that a little bit. But it's a beautiful, beautiful animal, and you've captured it so gracefully. So well done.
The tilt of the head is really lovely. It's like this dog just oozes love for whoever it's looking at. I can see that coming out of its eyes, which I'm really, really enjoying. There was, when I looked at the image, there are obviously some possibly banding or something going on in the background, so there's something a wee bit technical there. And also potentially some sharpening that's been applied to specific areas, so that might be a little bit strong in some areas. So they're just paying attention to some of those technical editing techniques would also be really useful for you.
Yeah.
And there's just this wonderful soulful expression on that dog. It's just quite captivating.
Thank you. We'll move on to our next image, which scored 20th in the category with a score of 79, which is a highly commended.
really beautiful little cheeky girl. The sort of screwed up nose, that's just absolutely gorgeous. The colour palette is really soft, in that kind of peachy pink range. It really suits what she's wearing, it suits her environment. Just to elevate it a little, some of the skin tones, particularly around the knees, are a wee bit orange. And there's that slightly kind of cooler white spot area off to the right-hand top, which possibly could have been graded in a little bit more to complete the image.
I love the tones of this image, and that smile is just so infectious. It looks like maybe she might be playing a game of hide and seek, and maybe she's just been caught. Really, really love it, and I do agree with the other judge here with regards to that top right corner. It's just a bit light, and it does draw your eye up to it. Maybe just cropping a little bit off the top could have helped with that.
Thank you. We will move on to our next image, which scored 19th in the category with a score of 79, which is a highly commended.
What a lot of activity going on here, and you get a sense of movement and musicality within the image. And I like that you can't see everything. Unfortunately, there's a couple of things that I can see that take me out of the picture, like this around, well, probably at the feet of the musician. There's some sparkly bits that, if they weren't there, you would then focus straight into where the action is with the hands and the bow and the strings, and that's where all the live stuff is. And maybe even just a little bit of toning back on the face would have made you focus most of all where that movement is, and started hearing the music and the image.
Yeah, that sense of movement in this one is really strong, and the cello is really, when I was looking at the image before, is really sharp. So it's wonderful to see that contrast between the sharpness of that and the movement of the arm. The bit that for me that could potentially be looked at was the face. Just that, obviously with a long exposure you're going to see some movement, and there is some movement in the face which makes it seem quite soft, but it's not strong enough movement to kind of almost look intentional, but it's not, it just sort of makes it look a little bit soft and blurry rather than intentionally moved. So maybe just thinking about how you can isolate that, or how you can, what you could do in post-production to either keep those places sharp that you want sharp, and movement in the places where you really want it.
Sorry, I was just going to add one more thing. The musician's left hand actually almost crops at the edge of the cello, and if it was either a little bit over towards the cello or a little bit further away, that wouldn't have happened, and it just adds another element of reality to it.
Thank you. We will move on to our next image, which scored 18th in the category, a score of 79, which is a highly commended.
I think this is a really fun image. Lots of happy smiles going on. Looks like they might be celebrating a nice big graduation there. I think that the framing is really well. You fit everybody in. Probably a couple of things to be mindful of is to just have cut feet off on the bottom there. So just make sure you're not pointing too upwards. It would have been great if you could have just framed that a little bit lower, cut off some of the top of the image, and made sure we had everybody's feet in the photo.
And the little Easter egg in this is the face of the young girl in the pink cardigan. The crazy face. It's just a joy to look at. It's just absolutely refreshing.
Thank you. We will move on to our next image, which scored 17th in the category with a score of 80, which is a silver award.
Oh, what a happy little chappy. I really enjoy the way it's trotting towards us with those ears perked up and those really bright eyes and big smile on his face. So really lovely separation from the background with the choice of lens. I do find it quite bright on the fur. It's obviously, it looks like it's possibly shot in quite strong sunlight, and possibly a different time of day would have helped reduce some of that brightness.
I agree. There's really good connection. This little corgi is charging right towards you. I agree with the other judge here. Perhaps a later time of the day, the light would have just been a little bit softer and a little bit more even. And another commentary would just be maybe try shorter grass. I just find the short grass on the left and then the very long grass on the right just a little bit distracting. That long grass is kind of pulling me away from the dog and over. A little bit easier said than done sometimes when you're out in nature. But yeah, just look for your positioning.
Take your lawnmower
Beautiful
with you.
image.
Thank you. We will move on to our next image, which scored 16th in the category with a score of 80, which is a silver award.
I love this image. It's nice to see a cat rather than a dog for a change. Look at this sassy little dude or dudette walking towards us with that paw and that little flick at the end of the tail. You've got really beautifully low hair, really captured that connection with the cat looking straight into the camera there. A couple of areas that could improve and elevate this image to the next level. There's a couple of little dark spots just on the kind of centre right at the bottom that just kind of draw my eye away, and I think if you just maybe cropped the bottom off a little bit more, we don't quite need so much grass. And the other area is it's quite light and bright behind the cat, but the top left corner is really dark, and that also draws my eye away. If you did a little bit of cropping and a little bit of lightening on that top left corner, it would just take this image to the next level. But well done, it's really beautiful.
There's a little bit of a sense of menace here. That evil cat, in a beautiful way. I don't mean that as a derogatory on cats, and it's ready for action. And so I applaud the photographer on capturing a little bit of personality that came through in such a strong way. But with all the things that the other judges mentioned, I don't know if I've got any more to add.
Thank you. We will move on to the next image, which scored 15th in the category, a score of 80, which is a silver award.
This is a really beautiful study of a woman's body and body parts. It's really lovely how the photographer has chosen a really dark background with a very directional light, and then kind of posed the beautiful lady with the incredible figure that I'm very jealous of to capture the light in those parts. Obviously, we've kind of got the front, we've got the back, and then we've got the side in that last image there. Generally, the posing is really is well thought out. The last image on the right is quite angular, maybe, whereas the other two are a wee bit softer. Certainly on this screen, it looks like the image in the middle is of a different kind of tonal range, which maybe throws out the sequence a wee bit. But yeah, well done. It's a really interesting exploration and something certainly to continue with.
The microphones are working. Can you hear me now? Yeah. Oh yeah, I'm sorry, I can't do anything about what's happening next door. I'm really sorry. I can hear the speaker, so their microphones are working, and I can hear them. Yeah, I know, but I can't. I'm really sorry. I can't do anything about the situation. Okay, thank you very much. We're going to move on to the next image. Oh, sorry. Did I only do one? I beg your pardon. Sorry, I got distracted. Go, Johan. Thank you.
I'm just going to reference the middle image, which, in what we're seeing here, has a flatness to it. The blacks aren't black. In fact, if anything, they're a bit grey, and the whites are almost a little bit over. And it takes away from the synergy of the other images. And if that could be addressed, it could even do better, I imagine.
Thank you. We will move on to the next image, which scored 14th in the category with a score of 80, which is a silver award.
This is a great portrait of this beautiful dog here. Looks like he's giving a little bit of side-eye, might be silently judging the photographer capturing the photo maybe, or maybe his owner standing to the side. I really love the personality that has been captured in this image. I think something that maybe could help improve it is only kind of nitpicking. The paw and the toes are just right on the edge of the wood deck, and then this black beneath at the bottom of the image there, and it just kind of almost looks like it cuts off his toes a little bit. So that, I just find that a little bit distracting, but again, nitpicking there. And then there seems to be a little bit of a texture that's been applied, or perhaps it's rain. It's a little bit hard to tell. I'd probably just tone down the graininess of it a little bit, because we don't have that effect on the dog. But really, really beautiful image, beautiful tonal range as well.
And I think the strength of this photograph is the glance that the photographer is getting out of the dog. For some reason, I get suspicious out of it, and why shouldn't it be? You know, here's a photographer stealing its soul. So I think that's actually a wonderful thing to have within the image, is something almost humanist coming out of the dog.
Thank you. We're going to move on to the next image. Just before I do that, can I just remind you guys, just if you can lean into the microphone, just so on the live feed it is heard, and that might also help with the speaker for you guys as well. Okie dokie. Our next image, which placed 13th in the category with a score of 80 and a silver award.
It's the eyes, obviously, in this image that are really, really beautiful and striking. There's that's kind of that tonal range as well, which is those kind of browns and creams, which is all the way through it, which is really lovely. I think it's very brave and commendable of the photographer to come really into those curls to accentuate the face rather than pulling back and seeing more of the hair and things. So I really enjoy the way it's been framed. There's a little bit of curl just kind of clipping on one of her eyes, and I found, whilst I really enjoyed that she's really entrenched in those curls, and that's what makes it, just that clip in that iris was a bit of a distraction for me. And again, just a wee bit bright across the forehead. It's high fashion, almost kind of that high fashion style does tend to have that kind of front on lighting, but it just does seem quite bright across the nose and the cheeks and the forehead.
This photograph dares you to look away. There's an iridescence in the skin which is quite stunning, really. The expression is taunting, I feel, and you can't look at it and then look away without it needing to look back. So I think that's a strength in this image.
Thank you. We will move on to the next image, which scored 12th in the category, a score of 80, which is a silver award.
This is really beautiful. I love the tonal colour of the sand and the background light there. And the golden glow in the model's hair. Beautiful red dress, really makes it a beautiful punchy photo. I really love it, and the footprints in the sand as well. Probably just one little area is, I'm presuming it must be maybe the water in the background. There's just that little horizon line there, and that white brightness just does distract me a little bit and pull my eye away. So maybe if that could just be perhaps softened down a little bit. Otherwise, beautiful.
There is a wonderful thing that's happening in this image. And if I was going to be critical, it's the footprints in front of the subject that distract me from the rest of the image. I love the red, I love the calm and the peace, but just the footprints in front actually distract me from the idea of a journey. Yeah. Still, congratulations.
Thank you. We will move on to the next image, which scored 11th in the category with a score of 81, which is a silver award.
Another wee double exposure moment here, and we've got two really opposing poses by this lovely young girl. I'm not quite sure whether in the first one she's sort of waiting to find out what's going on and whether she's been awarded or not, and in this next one she's I think she's celebrating that she's got her medal and throwing her hands up. The expression is a little unclear to me, but really enjoying how that double exposure works, and the softness of the, looks like maybe ice, like the background almost kind of makes me think of ice. Maybe she's an ice skater, although we can't see her feet, but yeah, really well done.
I like most of all the strength of the, let's call it the foreground image, which has a greater clarity to it. And in her head, she's wishing for what's happening in the background. And the severity of that look, the waiting, the pausing, and then this is how she wants to feel. And I think there's a wonderful story within that. And, you know, just the wonderful thing that she's wearing blue, and then you have this piece of red, which is the ribbon for the medal, and that gives it another life of its own. Yeah.
Thank you. That brings us through to our top 10. So with our top 10, we are not going to see any scores. These are all in random order. They're not in order of award. So we're just going to go through them one by one, and we'll have a couple of people talk about them, and then we'll move on to the next image. I just want to take a quick moment to thank Photo Warehouse for sponsoring the New Zealand Amateur Photography Awards. Without them, we would not have this, and it has been amazing for our first year to see such awesome images coming through. So I will kick off with the first image. There you go.
This is a really beautiful portrait, side portrait of this cattle dog here. And he's beautifully lit, potentially with fog, could be smoke, a little bit hard to tell. But he looks like he's curiously looking off into the distance at something. So your imagination can run a little bit wild there with what this cattle dog might be staring down. I do really like the smoke effect to it, but I think I would probably enjoy it a little bit more. It's quite blue at the top. And I find that just a little bit distracting and does draw my eye away a little bit. So if the blue could have been toned down a bit, I think this would elevate this image some more.
Such a beautiful, perky expression on this dog. It feels so much like it's got so much life, so much vitality. It's ready to go off and do its thing. I really appreciate it for all the reasons that Kirsten said, but I also really appreciate the space to the right-hand side, so that the dog's got some space to look into. So I think it's been really beautifully framed as well. So congratulations.
Thank you. We'll move on to the next image.
There's a wonderful intensity with young ballerinas that reflects their commitment or dedication to be really good at what they do. You see the perfection in the hair, you see the hands placed correctly, and there is a calm in there, but there's also hope in there, and it's quite strong. I really like that they've presented it as a square. I think the crop through the elbow was absolutely appropriate, and then there's this circle of the dress as it goes round and leads you, starts in the left-hand corner, it goes round behind the head, and if you were being sort of pictorial, you could say that it actually carries on through the hairline and then is carried on further through the dress and back round to the brightest part, which leads you into the hand and then up to the face. And then you have these closed eyes and there's a calm, but there's also a tension, and so it's quite strong for that.
As an ex-ballerina child, I think this is really beautiful. So for all of the reasons that Johan said, I really appreciate that kind of top-down view. It's, to me, that sort of position with that tutu sprayed out like that is very Swan Lake, which, you know, gorgeous. How could you not love that? Possibly the black, the very dark area on this particular tutu possibly distracts me a wee bit. It kind of makes things for me a little bit contrasty. So again, we've got some very light areas on the skin, and then looks like we've got some very, very dark areas on the actual tutu. So, which isn't quite so in keeping with all of that really beautiful softness that's going on around it. So, but still a very beautiful image. Well done.
Thank you. We will move on to our next image.
This is such a wonderful capture. So great timing, especially working with livestock who you can't get to stop and pose or stay still for a moment. So absolutely wonderful timing to have lined this up to capture this wee herding dog's face through the legs of some sheep there. I think it's really cleverly done. I'd love to know how long it took you to wait to get it. I think something just could elevate it to the next level. There's a little dark spot, kind of about a third way and on the bottom there on the left. If that was lightened up, because that does just draw my eye away from the dog a little bit. And I'd also just slightly crop it down from the top as well to get the chin dark spot and the tail dark spot out, and then I think that this would just elevate it next level. But it's absolutely beautiful, and you've done amazing to capture the timing of this.
There's a wonderful sense of, you know, I'm going to be in control here in spite of what you can see, and that eye conveys all the information that you need to have. There is a bit of an issue for me with what feels like over-sharpening in the grass. However, it is a strong and powerful image about control, and that control, that eye dog, that dog that's seeing, is steering down the photographer, steering down the audience as well, and saying, I'm the boss.
Thank you. We'll move on to our next image.
I think as soon as this is, for me, this is a really, really strong image. As soon as you look at the image, the colours and obviously the location that it's in, it whisks you off to somewhere completely different, a different culture, a different country, a different time. You know, it's just lovely. What he's wearing is really in keeping with the environment. His pose is really kind of strong. He's got that a slightly narrowed eyes, sort of that slightly suspicious look of, you know, what are you looking at? But he's definitely the boss in this situation. I really enjoy the way the hand kind of dangles down the front. I think possibly a different lens choice may sort of prevent that sort of enlargement that's happening as the hand comes nearer to the camera. But it's the tonal range, the posing, the strength of character from this person is just is brilliant.
There's a wonderful, almost tailored feel to what the man's wearing in such a dirty and ugly environment. And so there's a wonderful contrast that's occurring and has been witnessed and framed quite well by the photographer. You know, the trim of the beard, the cut of the fabric. And then you've got the dirty bits around him, and but then there's this piercing something about his eyes, and it makes them hard to look away from again. And it's quite strong and it's quite confrontational in a way, but very beautiful.
Thank you. We will move on to our next image.
This is a very cute, happy little pooch sitting on his favourite chair. I think this is framed really well. I love that the photographer has got down low here so that that eye connection is really dead centre on with the camera and the lens. I think that's been captured really well. And I think just to elevate a little bit more, the left arm is just a little bit blown out in the highlights. And quite a heavy vignetting, which looks potentially based on what we're seeing is a little bit of banding being caused in the background there. So just some things to keep an eye on for next time. But this pooch looks like he's in his favourite happy spot, and that's probably all that matters. So well done.
I really enjoyed this photo. The cheeky look on his face, the little flop of that ear, and what I really enjoyed as well was that kind of mirroring of the way the front paws splay out and they match the arms of the chair. I thought that was really, really clever. So I agree with what Kirsten said around there's the left arm, our left arm of the chair. I found quite bright and a bit distracting, but yeah, just really, really beautiful, cheeky image. I love it.
Thank you. We will move on to our next image.
There's there's a character within this image that has been dressed and appropriately dressed to give us a story that's been framed by some dark cloud, and it's gritty. It's gritty like his past, perhaps, and there's an earnest sense in what he's wearing and how he's looking at you and the lines in his face. And I applaud the photographer for presenting that to us in a sort of, it feels quite honest, like it feels, yes, they've been dressed up and put into these clothes, but they feel like they belong.
Yeah, the atmosphere that's created by the smoke or the fog really adds to this for me. The lighting is quite direct, quite hard, but it really still captures that left eye, which is furthest from the light. So really well done for that. I think it adds to it in this case. Whilst the clothing is really, really, really appropriate, just the bright whiteness of the neck scarf, I felt if that had been reduced, toned down a wee little, would have kept our gaze much more engaged with the face rather than sort of my eyes flicking back down to that neck scarf occasionally.
Thank you. We will move on to our next image.
There's a powerful sense of calm in this photograph. And if you actually try and understand what's happening, is this man has medals for bravery and all sorts of things that happened in the circumstance of war, and they almost conflict with the calm that he holds, but he owns them, and it's quite a powerful image for that. And the lighting on it is kind and right. It's so right. And the fact that it's not overly contrasty, the fact that there's a slight resignation in the shoulders kind of gives you a sense of presence and belonging, and then there's the look, the stare of the subject back at the photographer, through the photographer to us as the audience, with the placement of the hands, the beautiful skin tones. What a wonderful image.
I wanted to add to all of those things. I think it's a really beautiful image. the sort of muted toning of the colours is really appropriate. It gives it that kind of old sort of fashioned feel, slightly kind of sepia. He has been still is an incredibly brave man, but possibly been made to put his medals on and sit for this portrait. And maybe there's some reluctance there, but there is a very, very calm sense of pride. And I mean, I suspect those eyes have seen an awful lot, and I think his demeanour is just wonderful. It's a beautiful portrait.
Thank you. We'll move on to the next image.
This is really beautiful, this image. I love how the dog's front feet are just draped over the stump of the tree there, and how you've allowed enough negative space for him to steer off to the right-hand side into the distance. I think the treatment and editing of this is just beautiful. I think the tonal colour range is really, really lovely. And finding it hard to find any fault with this image. I just really love it. It's just really serene and peaceful. You've just got this lovely pooch lying in wait, looking off into the distance. So it's a really great capture and great editing. Well done.
Just to add to that, the stare off into the distance doesn't go forever. It's contained by a slight darkening down the right-hand side, which is perfect for the outcome. Another really significant part of this image is the clarity of the detail. The detail where it needs to be detail is pin sharp, and it's very admirable. It's quite a lovely image. If I was to say one thing, I do feel the fern in the foreground is just a little bit distracting, and that's the only thing that I'd perhaps not like about it. But overall, the whole feeling and the sense is strong, peaceful, calm, and loyal.
Yep.
Thank you. We will move on to the next image.
This really floats my boat. I love this. We've got so much information about this character in the middle who is a little bit wary about the photographer being there and slightly got this defensive pose, but has been framed so beautifully amongst all of his stuff. What I particularly enjoyed was that lots of the elements within the image point back towards him. So the knives on the left-hand side tend to point back towards him, and the planks on the right-hand side, and even the pathway coming from the left. I feel like we're kind of drawn in a bit of a circle around him, sort of up those slopes to the car, around to the car, around that line across the back there by the house, back down sort of round path to the pathway and back to him again. So there's lots of, my eye travels around this an awful lot. There's a couple of, three supporting roles, I think, in the background. Two of them are headless, which is quite intriguing, and then the little star of the show on the left-hand side peeking round, giving us that straight-on look. I think it's, he's been framed beautifully with his head within that square of whatever that concrete thing is at the back. And then which is mimicked with the square of the newspaper at the front. So I just see lots within this image. I think for me, possibly the only things that really I would want to comment on would be some of the white elements are quite bright, and so they are a bit distracting. And also maybe he could have benefited from a little bit more contrast or clarity, so that we are really drawn into the features of him.
Did I?
Well, no, there's more. The other thing that I'd like to add is the contrast between what you're seeing in the foreground is this man and his environment and the way he lives and the way he does things, and then his neighbour's property, which has, well, no junk. And it's clear and it's clean and it's simple. And I quite like the yin-yang of that.
Thank you. And we're going to move on to our next image, which is the last image in our top 10.
I want to have a conversation with this guy. You know, he looks incredibly interesting, and the photographers made us think that. There's a lot of wild child in there, and the subject is challenging us to even ask questions. And then you look at the quality of the image itself, the sharpness where it needs to be sharp, each individual hair that we need to see is pin sharp, and then his teeth, and then his eyes, and they're looking at you, and there's such a strength within that, and it's not been overprinted or anything. It's just been there, and there's a certain amount of joy in it even, and you kind of want to dance. So there's so much in there, and the photographer has had the good sense to not crop out the hair in any way and give it vitality and life and presence. So, applauds to the photographer for that.
This is a really joyful image. This just made me smile as soon as I saw it. So I absolutely agree with everything that the judge has said here. It's wild child indeed. You would absolutely love to sit down and have some conversations with this guy, find out about his life and all of the adventures or misadventures that he's been up to over the years. I agree as well that the hair, it's wild. There's just so much character and personality in this. I think the photographers captured it really, really well. Really minor little thing, just in that bottom right corner there's some white specks on the coat, and they do just drag my eye away a little bit, but that's been completely nitpicky. I just love it. Beautiful, well done.
Thank you. And that brings us to the end of the portrait category for the New Zealand Amateur Photography Awards. So congratulations to all of our entrants and our top 25. We are going to have our category winners and Photographer of the Year finalists announced at 5 p.m. Photo Warehouse are coming to join us. So if you would like to stick around for 5 o'clock, that would be great. Yes, and another huge thank you to Photo Warehouse for sponsoring our first year of the New Zealand Amateur Photography Awards. Thank you so much.
Good job.